Have you ever stopped to think about that simple white crystal on your dining table? Salt. It seems so ordinary, but what if I told you it's one of the most powerful and influential substances in human history? This humble mineral has built empires, started wars, and shaped our world in ways you can't even imagine. Let's journey back in time and uncover the incredible story of salt. Long before refrigerators, how did people preserve their food? The answer was salt. By drawing out moisture, salt prevented bacteria from growing, allowing our ancestors to store meat and fish for months, even years. This was revolutionary. It meant people could survive long winters, travel vast distances, and establish permanent settlements. Without salt, the great explorations and the growth of early cities might never have happened. It wasn't just a seasoning. It was the key to survival and progress. Because it was so essential, salt became incredibly valuable. In fact, it was one of the world's first global currencies. The word salary actually comes from the Latin word sal, for salt, because Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt rations. This white gold was so precious that entire trade routes were established just to transport it. The famous Via Salaria, or Salt Road in Italy, is a testament to this. Cities like Venice and Salzburg built their immense wealth on the salt trade, controlling its flow and taxing it heavily. Control over salt meant control over power and money. The influence of salt goes even deeper, weaving itself into our culture and beliefs. Have you ever thrown salt over your shoulder for good luck? This tradition has ancient roots stemming from the belief that salt could ward off evil spirits. In many religions, salt is a symbol of purity, loyalty, and permanence. It's used in blessings, covenants, and sacred rituals across the globe. Think about phrases in our own language: worth your salt, or salt of the earth. These expressions show just how deeply salt is embedded in our collective consciousness as a symbol of value and integrity. From ancient preservation techniques to its role as the first international currency, in its deep spiritual symbolism, salt is so much more than a simple food additive. It's a silent witness to our history, a catalyst for civilization, and a fundamental element that has connected humanity for thousands of years. The next time you sprinkle a little salt on your food, take a moment to appreciate the epic story contained within those tiny crystals. It's a story of survival, power, and the very essence of what makes us human. Thanks for watching. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more hidden histories. See you next time. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today diving deep into the history of something you probably sprinkle on your food every day without a second thought: salt. But this humble mineral has a story that's anything but ordinary. It's a tale of empires, economies, and even the divine. So, grab your popcorn lightly salted. Of course, Anne, let's journey back in time. Our story begins thousands of years ago. Long before refrigerators or modern preservatives, early civilizations stumbled upon a remarkable discovery. This white crystalline substance could do something almost magical. It could stop food from spoiling. This was a game changer. Suddenly, people could store food for long journeys, survive harsh winters, and build larger, more stable communities. But salt's power didn't stop there. It quickly became one of the most precious commodities in the ancient world, a true white gold capable of building and breaking economies. Let's head to Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization. Here, among the ancient cities rising between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, we find some of the earliest written records of humanitic cuneiform tablets. And guess what they talk about? Salt. We're talking about clay tablets dating back thousands of years before the Common Era. These ancient texts aren't just grocery lists. They reveal the central role salt played in society. They detail its use in everyday cooking, but also its critical importance in religious ceremonies and as a key ingredient in early medicinal practices. The Sumerians, one of the earliest civilizations in Mesopotamia, held salt in incredibly high regard. To them, it wasn't just a rock you dug out of the ground. It was seen as a divine gift, a sacred substance with the power to purify and preserve. They believed it could cleanse not just the body, but the soul itself. Imagine that. This simple mineral was woven into the very fabric of their spiritual beliefs. Priests would use salt in rituals to ward off evil spirits and to consecrate sacred spaces. It was a symbol of purity, incorruptibility, and life itself. This reverence wasn't unique to the Sumerians. As we move across the ancient world, we see this pattern repeat. In ancient Egypt, salt was indispensable for mummification. The Egyptians used a type of salt called natron to dry out the body, preserving it for the afterlife. This process was so vital to their beliefs about eternity that the salt trade was strictly controlled by the pharaohs. The salt flats of the Nile Delta were essentially treasure troves, fueling the religious and economic heart of the Egyptian empire. Entire expeditions were launched into the harsh desert just to secure new sources of this precious mineral. Then there's the mighty Roman Empire. Ever heard the phrase "worth his salt"? Comes directly from this era. Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt or given an allowance to buy it. This payment was called a salarium, which is the root of our modern word salary. That's right, the word for your paycheck comes from salt. For Rome, salt was a strategic resource. They built an entire network of roads, like the famous Via Salaria or Salt Road, just to transport salt from the coastal salt pans to the capital city. Controlling the salt supply meant controlling the people and the army. It was as crucial as controlling grain or water. But how did salt become so valuable? It wasn't just about food. Salt was also used for tanning leather, dyeing textiles, and making pottery glazes. Its applications were incredibly diverse, making it an essential industrial chemical of the ancient world. Because it wasn't available everywhere, it created vast trade networks. Camel caravans braved the scorching Sahara Desert, creating what were known as the salt routes, trading gold for salt, ounce for ounce. In places like Timbuktu, salt was literally worth its weight in gold. Entire cities flourished, and kingdoms rose to power based on their control of the salt trade. The history of salt is really the history of civilization itself. It shows us how a basic human need, the need to preserve food, can shape economies, build cities, inspire religious beliefs, and even influence the language we speak today. It's a powerful reminder that the most common things around us often have the most extraordinary stories. The next time you reach for the salt shaker, take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey that tiny crystal has taken through human history. It's more than just a seasoning, it's a piece of our shared past. Thanks so much for watching and joining me on this historical adventure. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories behind the everyday things in our lives. Let me know in the comments what other topics you'd like to explore. Till next time, stay curious. Did you know that the simple salt on your table was once as valuable as gold? It's true. This humble mineral has shaped human history in ways you might not even imagine. Let's journey back in time and uncover the incredible story of salt. For our ancient ancestors, salt wasn't just a seasoning, it was the key to survival. Before refrigerators, how did people preserve their food, especially meat and fish? You guessed it, salt. By drawing out moisture, salt prevented bacteria from growing, allowing food to be stored for months, even years. This was a game changer. It meant people could survive long winters, embark on epic sea voyages, and build settlements far from immediate food sources. Entire civilizations were built on the back of this simple preservation technique. Salt gave humanity food security, and with it, the freedom to explore, expand, and thrive. As societies grew, the demand for salt skyrocketed. It wasn't just a household need anymore. It became a strategic resource. Armies needed it to preserve rations for their soldiers on long campaigns. In fact, the word salary actually comes from the Latin word sal, for salt. Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt, which is where the expression "worth one's salt" comes from. A soldier wasn't doing his job well, he wasn't worth his salt. Imagine getting your paycheck in a bag of salt. It shows just how incredibly valuable it was. This immense value turned salt into a powerful economic engine. The trade of salt created incredible wealth and power. Cities that had access to salt mines or coastal salt pans became major economic hubs. Think of it like the oil cities of today. Venice, for example, built its vast maritime empire largely on its control of the salt trade in the Mediterranean. Governments quickly realized they could make a fortune by controlling and taxing salt. The infamous French salt tax, known as the gabelle, was so hated that it became one of the major grievances leading to the French Revolution. From ancient China to medieval Europe, Controlling salt meant controlling wealth and power. The quest for salt didn't just create wealth, it connected the world. Massive trade routes were carved out across continents, specifically for transporting this precious mineral. The most famous of these is the Via Salaria, or the Salt Road, in ancient Rome. One of the oldest roads in Italy. But perhaps even more epic were the salt caravans of the Sahara. For centuries, long lines of camels, sometimes thousands at a time, trekked across the vast, unforgiving desert. They carried slabs of salt from mines in the north, like Togaza, down to markets in sub-Saharan Africa, in places like Timbuktu. Here, salt was so rare that it was traded for gold, ounce for ounce, but these routes carried more than just salt and gold. They were conduits for ideas, technology, languages, and beliefs. The Sahara salt trade was a major factor in the spread of Islam, in the exchange of knowledge between North Africa and the empires of Mali and Songhai. These salt routes were the ancient world's internet, connecting distant cultures and fostering a global exchange that shaped our modern world. Beyond food and economics, salt also held deep spiritual and cultural significance. In ancient Egypt, salt was essential for the afterlife. It was a key ingredient in the mummification process. The Egyptians used a type of salt called natron to dry out the body, preserving it for its journey into the next world. They believed that preserving the physical body was crucial for the soul's survival. So, in a very real way, salt was the guardian of eternity for the pharaohs. This reverence for salt can be found in many cultures, symbolizing purity, preservation, and value. So, the next time you sprinkle a little salt on your food, take a moment to appreciate its incredible history. This simple crystal has preserved our food, paid our salaries, built empires, connected continents, and even promised eternal life. It's a powerful reminder that the most ordinary things can have the most extraordinary stories. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the history of salt fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more amazing stories hidden in plain sight. See you next time. Have you ever stopped to think about the humble salt shaker on your dining table? It's something we see every day, so common we barely give it a second thought. But what if I told you this simple mineral has shaped civilizations, started wars, and was once more valuable than gold? Today we're going on an incredible journey to uncover the secret history of salt. Our story begins thousands of years ago, long before written history. Early humans discovered that salt was a game changer. It wasn't just for seasoning. It was a miraculous preservative. In a world without refrigerators, salt was the key to survival. It allowed people to store meat and fish for long periods, which meant they could travel further, survive harsh winters, and build permanent settlements. Salt wasn't just a commodity, it was the foundation of society. Civilizations blossomed. So did the importance of salt. Take ancient Egypt, for example. The Egyptians, salt was a sacred substance. They used it in religious offerings and, most famously, in the mummification process. They believed salt's purifying properties would preserve the body for the afterlife. Hieroglyphs often depicted salt as a symbol of purity and eternity, showing its deep connection to both earthly life and the spiritual realm. And then we have the mighty Roman Empire. The Romans were brilliant engineers and strategists, and they understood the power of salt very well. They built extensive salt works and established famous salt roads, like the Via Salaria, to transport this precious mineral across their vast empire. In fact, salt was so crucial that it became a form of currency. Have you ever heard the word salary? It comes directly from the Latin word salarium, which was the allowance of salt given to Roman soldiers as part of their payment. Imagine getting paid in salt. This is also where the expression worth one's salt originates, meaning someone is competent and deserves their pay. The demand for salt didn't stop there. In the Middle Ages, cities that controlled salt production or trade routes became incredibly wealthy and powerful. Venice, for instance, built its magnificent empire largely on the back of the salt trade. Controlling salt meant controlling wealth, and controlling wealth meant controlling power. This often led to fierce competition and even salt wars between rival states, all fighting for a monopoly over this white gold. The influence of salt also reached the New World. It played a vital role in the American Revolution. The British Crown tried to control the salt supply to the knowing how essential it was for preserving food for the Continental Army. The colonists had to establish their own salt works to support the war effort, making salt a strategic resource in the fight for independence. Fast forward to more modern times, and salt continued to be a catalyst for change. Think of Mahatma Gandhi's famous Salt March in 1930. It was a brilliant act of non-violent civil disobedience against the British salt tax in India. By leading thousands of people to the sea to make their own salt, Gandhi challenged the authority of the British Empire and galvanized the Indian independence movement. It showed the world that even something as simple as a grain of salt could become a powerful symbol of freedom and resistance. Today, salt is abundant and inexpensive for most of us. We use it in everything from cooking and food preservation to dicing roads and manufacturing chemicals. It's easy to forget its dramatic and influential past. But the next time you sprinkle a little salt on your food, take a moment to remember its incredible journey through human history. You're holding a substance that has built empires, paid soldiers, and inspired revolutions. It's a direct link to our ancestors and a testament to how something so small can have such a massive impact on the world. Thanks for joining me on this salty adventure. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next dive into the hidden histories that surround us every day. See you next time. Have you ever thought about the seasoning sitting on your kitchen table, that humble shaker of salt? It might seem ordinary, but salt has a history so powerful it shaped empires, built cities, and even paid soldiers. Today we're going on a journey to uncover the incredible story of this everyday mineral. Let's start with a simple fact. Your body needs salt to survive. Our nerves, muscles, and even our ability to think depend on it. Ancient civilizations knew this well. Long before refrigeration, salt was the key to preserving food, especially meat and fish. This ability to store food for long periods meant people could survive harsh winters, travel long distances, and build permanent settlements. Salt wasn't just a seasoning, it was a technology for survival. This essential nature made salt incredibly valuable. In many parts of the ancient world, it was as precious as gold. In fact, the word salary comes from the Latin word salarium, which was the payment Roman soldiers received, so often partly in salt, to buy their necessities. This practice shows just how crucial salt was, not just for its economic worth, but for its strategic role in maintaining powerful armies and sprawling empires. Think about it. An army that can carry its food is an army that can conquer. Now let's shift our focus to the glistening coasts of Europe, where a different kind of salt story unfolded. Here, entire cities blossomed around the production of sea salt. One of the most famous examples is the magnificent city of Venice. Today we know it for its canals and art, but much of its early wealth and influence during the medieval period came from its tight grip on the salt trade in the Mediterranean. The Venetian Republic built a maritime empire, and a significant pillar of that empire was salt. Extracting salt from the vast ocean became a refined art form. The process was ingenious. Coastal communities would build large, shallow ponds called salt pans. Seawater would be channeled into these pans, and then they'd simply let the sun and wind do the work. As the water evaporated, it left behind a crust of pure white salt crystals. This method, known as solar evaporation, required immense patience and a deep understanding of the natural elements. These techniques weren't just industrial processes. They became a cultural heritage. The knowledge of how to manage the salt pans, when to harvest, and how to refine the salt was passed down from generation to generation. It created a tradition that remarkably endures to this very day in many coastal regions of France, Portugal, and Croatia. These artisanal salt makers continue a practice that's thousands of years old, producing some of the finest gourmet salts in the world. So, the next time you sprinkle a little salt on your food, take a moment to appreciate its incredible journey. It's not just a simple crystal. It's a piece of history, a foundation of economies, and a testament to human ingenuity. It's the mineral that built our world. Thanks for joining me on this salty adventure. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories hidden in plain sight. See you in the next one. Have you ever thought about what's really in your salt shaker? It's more than just a simple seasoning. It's a substance that has shaped empires, sparked wars, and driven incredible technological innovation. While many of us might think of ancient Rome salting the fields of Carthage or medieval European salt taxes, the real story of salt mastery takes us much further east to ancient China. Long before the West was systematically harvesting salt, Chinese civilizations were not just collecting it. They were engineering its extraction on a scale that was truly ahead of its time. Imagine this. Over 2,000 years ago. While other cultures were scraping salt from shores or boiling seawater, the Chinese were drilling deep into the earth. We're not talking about shallow pits. We're talking about complex, sophisticated wells. Some plunging hundreds, even thousands of feet underground to tap into vast, hidden brine deposits. This wasn't just digging a hole. It was a monumental feat of engineering. They developed percussive drilling techniques using heavy iron bits attached to bamboo poles. A team of men would rhythmically jump on and off a lever, pounding the bit deeper and deeper into the ground, inch by painstaking inch. This process could take years, even decades, for a single well. It was a testament to their patience, ingenuity, and incredible understanding of geology. To lift the brine from these incredible depths, they created elaborate systems of bamboo pipelines and derricks. These weren't just functional, they were marvels of resourcefulness. The bamboo, strong yet flexible, served as both the drill pipe and the conduit to transport the brine. Sometimes for miles, to evaporation sites. They even figured out how to use natural gas, which they often hit while drilling for salt, as a fuel source to heat the brine and speed up the crystallization process. This was the world's first industrial use of natural gas, happening centuries before the West even dreamed of such a thing. The epicenter of this salt revolution was in what is now Sichuan province. Places like Zhejiang became the ancient world's equivalent of Silicon Valley, but for salt. Generations of families passed down the secrets of drilling, brine extraction, and purification. These salt wells weren't just a source of seasoning, they were a source of immense wealth and power for the Chinese Empire. The government established a monopoly on salt, creating a stable and massive source of revenue that funded everything from the Great Wall to vast armies. So, why was this so significant? Because these techniques, born from the quest for salt, didn't just stop there. The knowledge gained from drilling deep into the earth, of understanding geological layers, and of managing high-pressure resources laid the foundational principles for modern drilling. The very same concepts used to extract salt thousands of years ago evolved into the methods we use today to drill for oil and natural gas. The next time you sprinkle a little salt on your food, take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey it represents. It's a story of human ingenuity, of empires built on a single mineral, and of the ancient Chinese engineers who, with bamboo and iron, drilled their way into the future. Changing the world one grain at a time? It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most profound innovations come from the most common of places. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the history of salt as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden stories that shaped our world. See you next time. Did you know that one of the most common items in your kitchen pantry holds a sacred and ancient secret? That's right, I'm talking about salt. It's so much more than just a seasoning. It's a substance that has been revered in religious texts and spiritual practices for thousands of years. From ancient covenants to purification rituals, salt has played a surprisingly powerful role in humanity's relationship with the divine. So, let us journey back in time and uncover the fascinating spiritual history hidden within a simple grain of salt. The earliest mentions of salt in sacred texts date back 2 times as ancient as the scriptures themselves. In the Old Testament, salt is frequently mentioned as a symbol of purity, preservation, and covenant. Think about it. Salt preserves food, stopping decay and keeping it pure. This physical property made it the perfect metaphor for enduring agreements and spiritual integrity. The book of Leviticus, for example, instructs the Israelites to offer salt with all their offerings. This wasn't just a culinary suggestion. It highlighted its immense ritual and symbolic importance. It was a physical representation of the lasting and unbreakable covenant between humanity and the divine. The phrase covenant of salt appears multiple times, signifying a binding agreement that would never spoil or corrupt, just like salt preserved food. It was a promise that was meant to last forever. Moving to the New Testament, the symbolism of salt evolves but remains just as powerful. Perhaps the most famous reference comes from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, where he tells his disciples, "You are the salt of the earth." This wasn't a compliment about their cooking skills. He was calling them to be a preserving and purifying force in the world. Just as salt adds flavor and prevents decay, his followers were meant to bring moral and spiritual value to society, to counteract corruption, and to be a positive influence. But he also adds a warning. If salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? This powerful metaphor served as a call to action, reminding his followers to maintain their faith and positive impact, lest they become ineffective and without purpose. This teaching has resonated through centuries, encouraging believers to live lives of meaning and influence. But the significance of salt isn't limited to Judeo-Christian traditions. In many other religious and spiritual practices around the world, salt holds a prominent place. In ancient Rome, salt was considered so valuable, it was used as a form of payment for soldiers. This is where the word salary comes from, derived from the Latin salarium. Vesta, the Roman goddess of the hearth and home, was honored with offerings of salt as a symbol of the purity and stability of the household. In Japan, the Shinto religion uses salt extensively in purification rituals. This practice, known as ohare, involves sprinkling salt to cleanse people, places, and objects of impurities or negative energy. You might see small piles of salt called morigyo, placed at the entrance of restaurants or homes to ward off evil spirits and attract good fortune. It's a tradition deeply woven into the cultural and spiritual fabric of Japan. Across various folk traditions and spiritual beliefs, salt is almost universally seen as a powerful protective agent. From European folklore, where people would sprinkle salt across their thresholds to prevent evil spirits from entering, to Buddhist traditions where salt is used to purify a space after a funeral, its cleansing power is recognized globally. It's used to create sacred circles for rituals, to cleanse crystals and other spiritual tools, and even in spiritual baths to wash away negative energy. This widespread belief stems from salt's inherent properties. Its crystalline structure is seen as orderly and pure, and its ability to absorb moisture is metaphorically linked to its ability to absorb negative psychic energy. So, whether it's a pinch of salt thrown over a shoulder for good luck, or a formal religious ceremony, the core belief is the same. Salt cleanses, protects, and sanctifies. So, the next time you reach for the salt shaker, take a moment to appreciate the rich history and deep spiritual significance packed into those tiny crystals. It's a substance that has connected humanity with the divine, symbolized eternal promises, and served as a guardian against unseen forces for millennia. From the altars of ancient Israel to the doorways of modern Japan, salt remains a powerful symbol of purity, preservation, and protection. It's a humble yet profound reminder that sometimes the most sacred things can be found in the most ordinary places. Thanks for watching, and if you found this journey into the history of salt as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into the hidden histories of everyday things. See you next time. Did you know that the simple salt sitting on your kitchen table has a history as rich and fascinating as any ancient empire? It's more than just a seasoning. For millennia, it was a symbol of creation, purity, and power. Let's take a journey back in time to uncover the secret life of salt. In the vast, cold landscapes of Norse mythology, salt wasn't just a mineral. It was a primordial element, playing a role in the very creation of the world. Imagine the cosmic cow Audhumbla licking the salty ice blocks of Ginnungagap. With each lick, she wasn't just tasting salt, she was carving out the first being, Buri, the ancestor of the gods themselves. This story tells us that for the Vikings, salt was a fundamental building block of existence, intricately linked to the birth of both gods and men. It was from these salty beginnings that the oceans were formed, the lands rose, and the world as they knew it took shape. Now let's travel from the icy north to the vibrant spiritual traditions of India. In Hindu culture, salt holds a powerful position as a spiritual purifier. It's believed to have the incredible ability to absorb and neutralize negative energies. That's why you'll often find salt used in various rituals and home purification practices. People sprinkle it in the corners of their homes to ward off malevolent spirits or dissolve it in water for cleansing baths. A pinch of salt isn't just for flavor, It's a shield, a tool to maintain spiritual harmony and protect against unseen negative influences. This belief showcases a deep understanding of salt's cleansing properties, extending from the physical to the metaphysical realm. The reverence for salt wasn't confined to the Old World. Across the Atlantic, in the pre-Columbian Americas, salt was just as precious, if not more so. For great civilizations like the Maya and the Aztecs, salt was liquid gold, was a cornerstone of their economy and society. They established intricate trade routes stretching for hundreds of miles, all centered around the transport and distribution of this vital commodity. Salt wasn't just used to preserve food and enhance flavor. It was a form of currency used to pay soldiers and artisans. It also played a central role in their religious ceremonies, offered to the gods as a tribute of immense value. The control of salt sources often led to wealth, power, and sometimes even conflict. From the creation myths of the Norse to the purification rituals in Hinduism, and the economic might it represented for the Maya and Aztecs. The story of salt is woven into the very fabric of human history. It has shaped economies, inspired spiritual beliefs, and even been at the heart of creation stories. So next time you reach for the salt shaker, take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey of these tiny crystals. They carry with them the weight of civilizations, the whispers of ancient rituals, and the taste of the primordial ocean. It's a humble reminder that the most common things in our lives often have the most extraordinary stories to tell. Thanks so much for joining me on this historical deep dive. If you enjoyed learning about the secret history of salt, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more fascinating stories from our past. See you in the next one. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving deep into the history of something we all have in our kitchens. Something that seems so simple, yet it shaped empires, fueled explorations, and even started wars. That's right, we're talking about salt. This isn't just a seasoning. It's a cornerstone of human civilization. Our story begins not in a fancy kitchen, but deep in the earth, in the salt mines of Chiapa, Mexico. Long before the Spanish arrived, ancient civilizations here were already masters of salt extraction. These weren't just simple pits in the ground. The people of Chiapa developed incredibly sophisticated techniques, creating an intricate network of wells and evaporation ponds. They understood geology and hydrology, engineering systems to draw brine from underground springs, and use the power of the sun to crystallize the precious salt. These mines are an amazing archaeological testament to their ingenuity. For them, salt wasn't just for flavor. It was a vital preservative, a form of currency, and a sacred element used in religious rituals. The wealth and power of many ancient Mesoamerican cities were built, quite literally, on salt. Now, let's fast forward a few centuries and sail across the Atlantic to the Age of Discovery. Imagine you're a sailor in the 15th century, about to embark on a journey into the unknown. Your biggest enemy isn't pirates or sea monsters, it's hunger. How do you keep food edible for months on end in a damp wooden ship? The answer, once again, is salt. The ability to preserve fish and meat with salt was the technological breakthrough that made long-distance sea voyages possible. Before this, sailors were limited by how much fresh food they could carry. But with salted provisions, the horizon suddenly expanded. Think about it. Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama, Ferdinand Magellan, none of their epic journeys would have been feasible without shiploads of salted cod and cured pork. Salt was the fuel for their expeditions. It allowed crews to survive the grueling months at sea, pushing the boundaries of the known world. Every time a ship left a European port, its hold was filled with barrels of salt and salted food. This simple mineral empowered explorers to cross vast oceans, connect continents, and initiate the first wave of globalization. The meeting of distant cultures, the exchange of goods, ideas, and unfortunately, diseases, it was all underpinned by the humble salt crystal. The demand for salt became so immense that it drove economies and sparked conflicts. Nations fought for control of salt-rich territories. The famous gabelle, a salt tax in France, was so hated that it became one of the key grievances leading to the French Revolution. In Venice, a city built on water, the salt trade was the foundation of its immense wealth and maritime power. The Venetians established a monopoly, controlling salt production and trade routes across the Mediterranean, making them one of the most powerful states in Europe. Salt was white gold, and controlling its supply meant controlling power and destiny. From the ancient mines of Mexico to the decks of explorer ships, salt has been a quiet but powerful force in human history. It's a story of innovation, ambition, and the fundamental human need to preserve and sustain. It reminds us that sometimes the most ordinary things have the most extraordinary stories. So next time you sprinkle a little salt on your food, take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey it represents, a journey through time, across oceans, and at the very heart of our shared human story. What are some other everyday items with amazing histories? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories behind the world we live in. See you next time. Have you ever stopped to think about the salt shaker on your table? It's so common, we barely give it a second thought. But this humble crystal has a history that's anything but ordinary. It's a story of healing, power, and even war. Today, we're going to uncover the secret life of salt. Let's travel back in time, way back to ancient Greece. Here we meet Hippocrates, often called the father of medicine. He wasn't just prescribing herbs and rest. He was a big believer in the power of salt. He saw that fishermen's hands, though often cut and scraped, rarely got infected. His conclusion? Salt water was a natural healer. He started recommending saltwater baths and inhalations to treat everything from skin sores to respiratory problems. Imagine a doctor's prescription could have been take a dip in the sea. This idea wasn't just a Greek fad. It spread across the ancient world and held on for centuries. Roman physicians used salt to clean wounds on the battlefield. In medieval Europe, salt was a key ingredient in poultices to reduce swelling and ease pain. It was the ancient world's go-to antiseptic, a simple yet effective way to fight off infections long before we understood germs. Even in early surgical procedures, salt solutions were used to cleanse instruments and prevent post-operative complications. It was a cornerstone of medicine, accessible and powerful. But salt's influence didn't stop at the doctor's office. It seeped into the very fabric of society and politics. Why? Because everyone needed it. Salt wasn't just for flavor. It was the primary way to preserve food. No refrigerators, remember? If you wanted to store meat, fish, or vegetables for the long winter, you needed salt, and lots of it. This made salt one of the most valuable commodities in the world. And whenever something is that valuable, someone wants to control it. Governments quickly realized that by controlling the salt supply, they could control the people. They imposed heavy taxes on salt, which became a huge source of revenue for kingdoms and empires. The word salary actually comes from the Latin word salarium, which was the money given to Roman soldiers to buy salt. That's right. Soldiers were literally paid in salt money. This control led to incredible feats of engineering, like the ancient salt roads that crisscrossed continents, but it also led to conflict. The famous Salt March, led by Mahatma Gandhi in 1930, was a protest against the British salt tax in India, a pivotal moment in their fight for independence. Throughout history, access to salt could make or break a nation. Cities like Venice built their immense wealth not on spices or silk alone, but on their control of the salt trade. Entire wars have been fought over salt mines and trade routes. So, the next time you sprinkle a little salt on your food, take a moment to appreciate its incredible journey. It's not just a seasoning. It's a medicine that healed our ancestors, a treasure that built empires, and a symbol of power that shaped the world we live in today. It's a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary stories are hidden in the most ordinary things. Thanks for joining me on this historical deep dive. If you found this fascinating, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden histories. See you in the next video. Have you ever wondered how something as simple as salt could build empires and spark revolutions? It's on every dinner table, but for most of human history, salt was a source of incredible power and wealth, often called white gold. Believe it or not, this humble mineral has shaped our world in ways you can't even imagine. Let's travel back in time. Long before refrigeration, salt was the key to survival. It was the only way to preserve meat and fish, allowing ancient civilizations to store food for lean times and travel long distances. This made salt one of the most valuable commodities on Earth. Entire cities, like Hallstatt in Austria, sprung up around salt mines. Ancient trade routes, like the famous Via Salaria in Rome, the Salt Road, were established just to transport this precious mineral. In fact, the word salary comes from the Latin word sal, because Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt. You imagine getting your paycheck in a bag of crystals. Because it was so essential, rulers and empires quickly realized that controlling salt meant controlling the people. They monopolized its production and trade, slapping heavy taxes on it. This wasn't just a small fee, it was a powerful tool for social and political control. In ancient China, the state's monopoly on salt was a major source of revenue for the imperial government. It's funding everything from the Great Wall to massive armies. In France, the infamous gabelle, a tax on salt, was so hated that it became one of the key grievances leading to the French Revolution. People were literally dying over the price of salt. This struggle for control over salt wasn't just an ancient phenomenon. It continued right into the 20th century. One of the most iconic examples of this happened in India. Under British rule, Indians were forbidden from producing or selling their own salt. They were forced to buy it from the British, who of course imposed a heavy tax. In 1930, a man named Mahatma Gandhi decided to challenge this injustice in a powerful and peaceful way, lead thousands of people on a 240-mile journey to the Arabian Sea. This event, known as the Salt March, culminated in Gandhi and his followers making their own salt by evaporating seawater, directly defying British law. It was a simple act, but it symbolized a nation's demand for freedom and became a turning point in India's struggle for independence. All because of salt. But how did we even get all this salt in the first place? The story of salt extraction is a fantastic journey of human ingenuity. Early humans probably discovered it from dried up lakes or salt licks used by animals. Later, people in coastal areas mastered the art of solar evaporation, letting the sun do the work to leave behind pure salt crystals. In other regions, they developed complex mining techniques, digging deep into the earth to carve out massive blocks of rock salt. Some of the oldest salt mines in the world, like those in Poland, are incredible underground cities, with chapels and statues all carved out of salt. Then there was brine evaporation, where people would pump salty underground water to the surface and boil it in huge pans. A method that required immense amounts of fuel and labor. From ancient Rome to revolutionary France and British India, the story of salt is a story of power, rebellion, and innovation. It's a reminder that the most ordinary things can have the most extraordinary histories. So next time you sprinkle a little salt on your food, take a moment to think about the incredible journey it took to get to your table. It's the empires that rose and fell over this simple, powerful mineral. Thanks for watching. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more hidden histories. See you in the next video. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're rediving deep into the history of something you probably use every single day without a second thought: salt. It might seem like just a simple kitchen staple, but this humble mineral, it's often called white gold, has a story that's as rich and complex as any empire. Its journey is woven into the very fabric of human civilization, shaping economies, building cities, and even sparking wars. So, grab your salt shakers and let's get started. Our story begins thousands of years ago. Long before we had fancy grinders and iodized options, our ancestors discovered salt's incredible power. Early humans likely found it by accident, maybe tasting the salty residue on coastal rocks or noticing that meat from animals near salt licks tasted better and lasted longer. This was a game changer. For the first time, people could preserve food, especially meat and fish, through the harsh winters or on long journeys. This wasn't just about flavor. It was about survival. The ability to store food meant that nomadic tribes could finally settle down, paving the way for the first agricultural communities and eventually the first cities. Civilizations grew, so did the demand for salt. The ancient Egyptians, for example, used it not just for seasoning food, but also in their religious ceremonies and most famously for mummification. They would pack bodies in natron, a natural salt mixture, to draw out moisture and preserve them for the afterlife. In China, as early as 2700 BC, people were already documenting different methods for extracting salt, including boiling seawater in clay pots. They even had a text called the Penso Canmu, which described over 40 different types of salt. It quickly became a valuable commodity, and governments were quick to realize its potential. The Chinese emperor established a state monopoly on salt, creating a massive source of revenue that helped fund projects like the Great Wall. The Romans took salt's importance to a whole new level. Their empire was vast, and their legions needed to be fed. Salt was essential for preserving rations like salted pork and fish, allowing their armies to march farther and conquer more territory. In fact, salt was so valuable that Roman soldiers were sometimes paid with it. This is where we get the word salary, from the Latin salarium, which originally referred to a soldier's allowance to buy salt. The Romans also built incredible infrastructure to transport it, like the famous Via Salaria, or Salt Road, one of the oldest roads in Italy, which ran from the salt flats at the mouth of the Tiber River straight to Rome. Control over the salt trade meant control over the empire's food supply and its military might. The influence of salt didn't fade with the fall of Rome. Throughout the Middle Ages and into the modern era, salt continued to be a source of immense wealth and power. Cities like Venice built their entire fortune on controlling the salt trade routes across the Mediterranean. In France, the infamous Gabelle, a tax on salt, was so hated that it became one of the major grievances leading to the French Revolution. Even in the Americas, salt played a crucial role. During the American Civil War, the Union Army targeted the Confederacy's salt works. Knowing that without salt to preserve their food, the Southern armies couldn't sustain their fight. From Gandhi's famous Salt March in protest of British rule in India, to the modern industrial processes that extract it from deep underground mines. Salt's story is a reflection of our own. So, the next time you sprinkle a little salt on your food, take a moment to appreciate its incredible history. This simple mineral has built empires, funded wars, and fueled human progress for millennia. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary stories are found in the most ordinary things. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into the history of white gold fascinating, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories behind our world. See you next time. Did you know that the simple table salt you sprinkle on your food holds a secret history? One that's deeply woven into ancient rituals and sacred texts? Its story isn't just about flavor. It's about faith, covenant, and a spiritual significance that has traveled through time. Let's journey together into this fascinating world, starting with one of history's most influential traditions, Judaism. Here, salt transcends its everyday use, becoming a powerful symbol of connection and purity. In ancient Jewish tradition, salt was far more than a simple seasoning. It was a key ingredient in temple sacrifices. The Torah itself commands that every offering presented to God must be seasoned with salt. Why? Because salt was seen as a preservative, something that prevented decay and corruption. This physical property gave it a powerful symbolic meaning. Just as salt preserves food, the covenant, the sacred agreement between God and the Jewish people, was seen as eternal and unbreakable. Every pinch of salt on an offering was a physical reminder of this everlasting promise. It was a symbol of permanence in a world of constant change. This symbolism of an unbreakable bond is beautifully captured in the phrase covenant of salt. When two parties in the ancient Near East shared salt, it wasn't just a meal, it was a pact. It signified loyalty, trust, and a relationship that was meant to endure. This idea is central to Jewish belief, reinforcing the strength and timelessness of the divine relationship. It's a powerful metaphor, suggesting that the connection with the divine is as incorruptible and lasting as salt itself. Beyond the temple, salt's purifying qualities found their way into daily life and rituals. For example, it became accustomed to dip the first piece of bread, the challah, into salt before the start of a Sabbath meal. This act transforms the family table into a symbolic altar, echoing the ancient temple sacrifices. Each meal becomes a sacred event, a moment to remember the eternal covenant. It's a beautiful tradition that brings a profound sense of history and spirituality right into the modern home, connecting generations past with the present. It's a way of saying that even in the most ordinary moments, there's an opportunity for holiness. But the symbolism doesn't stop there. In Jewish mysticism, known as Kabbalah, salt is associated with Gevira, which represents divine judgment, discipline, and strength. Water, on the other hand, is linked to chest, representing kindness and mercy. The act of adding salt to water symbolizes the perfect balance between these two forces, judgment tempered with mercy. It's a reminder that a healthy spiritual life requires both structure and compassion, strength and loving kindness. This beautiful balance is seen as essential for creation and for our own personal growth. From an ancient preservative to a symbol of an eternal promise, and from a temple offering to a staple on the Sabbath table. The journey of salt through Jewish tradition is truly remarkable. It shows us how an everyday substance can be filled with layers of meaning, connecting the physical world with the spiritual. It's a testament to how ancient wisdom can find relevance in our lives today, turning a simple grain of salt into a powerful symbol of faith, purity, and the unbreakable bond between humanity and the divine. So next time you reach for the salt shaker, take a moment to think about its incredible history. It's not just a mineral, it's a piece of a story that has been told for thousands of years, a story of covenants, purity, and the enduring power of faith. Thanks for joining me on this journey. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more explorations into the hidden histories of the world around us. See you next time. Have you ever thought about what salt really means? Beyond just a simple kitchen staple, salt holds a deep and powerful significance in the ancient world, especially within the pages of the Old Testament. Today, we are going to dive into how this common substance was elevated from a mere seasoning to a sacred symbol, becoming a crucial part of the covenant between God and His people. It's a story that transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, revealing a spiritual dimension you might have never considered. In the ancient world, salt was a big deal. It wasn't just for flavor, it was essential for life. Think about it. Before refrigeration, how did people preserve their food? Salt was the key. It stopped meat and fish from spoiling, allowing communities to store food for lean times and travel long distances. This made salt incredibly valuable, almost like currency. In fact, the word salary comes from the Latin word for salt, sal, because Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt. It was a symbol of preservation, purity, and enduring value. Now, let's see how the Old Testament takes this practical importance and infuses it with spiritual meaning. In the book of Leviticus, we find a command from God: season all your grain offerings with salt. Do not leave the salt of the covenant of your God out of your grain offerings. Add salt to all your offerings. This isn't just a culinary tip. The salt of the covenant is a powerful phrase. It links this everyday substance directly to the sacred promises between God and Israel. So, what does it mean to have a covenant of salt? A covenant is a solemn, binding agreement. By adding salt, the Israelites were symbolizing the permanence and unbreakable nature of their relationship with God. Just as salt preserves food from decay, God's covenant preserves His people. It's a promise that will not spoil or fade away. This made every offering a physical reminder of God's enduring faithfulness and the lasting bond He shared with them. The salt wasn't just an ingredient, it was a testament to a promise that would stand the test of time. This symbolism of permanence and purity extends beyond just offerings. In the book of Numbers, when there's a dispute over the priesthood, God affirms His promise to Aaron and his descendants as a covenant of salt forever. Again, salt is used to signify an everlasting, incorruptible agreement. Later, in 2 Chronicles, King Obijah of Judah reminds his opponents that God gave the kingship over Israel to David and his descendants by a covenant of salt. This meant the Davidic dynasty was established by a divine promise that was permanent and could not be broken. Think about the properties of salt itself. It purifies. It has a cleansing quality. It's also played into its symbolic role. In the Old Testament, salt was associated with purification and holiness. A famous example is when the prophet Elisha heals the contaminated water of Jericho. What does he use? He throws salt into the spring and declares that the water is now healed. The salt acts as an agent of purification, transforming something harmful into something life-giving. This act powerfully illustrates how God's presence, symbolized by the salt, can purify and restore. So, when we look back at the Old Testament, we see that salt is so much more than a simple mineral. It's a multi-layered symbol representing preservation, permanence, purity, and the unbreakable covenant between God and His people. It connects the physical, everyday world with the divine, spiritual realm. From preserving food to sealing eternal promises, salt was woven into the very fabric of ancient Israelite faith and identity. It turned a simple act of seasoning into a profound declaration of faith and a constant reminder of God as enduring presence and promises. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the rich symbolism of salt. If you found this interesting, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the hidden meanings within ancient texts. What other everyday objects hold surprising spiritual significance to you? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time. Have you ever wondered why salt is so important in many cultures and religions? It's more than just a seasoning for our food. In the Old Testament, salt is elevated to an almost sacred level, becoming a powerful symbol of the unbreakable bond between God and humanity. This idea is captured in a fascinating concept known as the covenant of salt. This wasn't just some poetic phrase. In the ancient Near East, a covenant of salt was a serious binding agreement. When people shared salt, it was like signing a contract in blood. It signified loyalty, permanence, and a relationship that couldn't be broken. Salt itself was a symbol of purity and preservation. It stops decay and keeps things from going bad, which made it the perfect metaphor for an everlasting promise. Let's look at the book of Numbers, chapter 18, verse 19. God says, "All the sacred offerings the Israelites present to the Lord, I give to you and your children as a lasting ordinance. It is a covenant of salt before the Lord for you and your descendants." This is a powerful statement. God is essentially saying that his promise to the priests, the Levites, is as enduring and incorruptible as salt itself. Their portion of the holy offerings is guaranteed, sealed by this divine, unbreakable pact. This wasn't the only time this phrase was used. In 2 Chronicles, we see the covenant of salt applied to kingship. The prophet Obijah reminds Jeroboam that God gave the kingship over Israel to David and his descendants forever through a covenant of salt. This meant that David's royal line was established by an eternal, unchangeable decree from God. The promise was permanent, just like the preservative quality of salt. But why salt specifically? Think about its properties. Salt is incredibly stable, doesn't easily change or break down. In a world without refrigeration, it was essential for preserving food, especially meat. This made it incredibly valuable. Its ability to halt decay was a visible, everyday reminder of the concept of permanence and incorruptibility. So when ancient people made a covenant of salt, they were invoking this power. They were saying, just as the salt preserves and endures, so will our agreement. This symbolism also carried over into rituals. In the book of Leviticus, it's commanded that every grain offering must be seasoned with salt. The text explicitly calls it the salt of the covenant of your God. This wasn't about taste. It was a symbolic act. Adding salt was a constant reminder of the enduring relationship between the Israelites and their God. Every offering was a reaffirmation of this unbreakable bond. The salt transformed a simple offering of grain into a profound declaration of faith and commitment. Acknowledging God's eternal promises, even Jesus used salt in his teachings. In the Sermon on the Mount, he tells his followers, "You are the salt of the earth." He wasn't just calling them valuable. He was giving them a huge responsibility. He was saying they were to be agents of preservation and purity in a world prone to moral and spiritual decay. Just as salt stops food from rotting, his followers were meant to have a positive, preserving influence on the world around them. But he also gives a warning. If salt loses its saltiness, it's worthless. This was a call to maintain their integrity and faithfulness, to live up to their side of the covenant. So, the next time you sprinkle a little salt on your meal, take a moment to think about its incredible history. It's a symbol that has traveled through millennia, representing purity, value, and promises that are meant to last forever. From the sacred offerings in the temple to the divine right of kings, the covenant of salt was a tangible reminder of an eternal, unbreakable relationship. It shows how even the most common substance can hold the deepest spiritual meaning. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this interesting, do you want to forget to like this video? And subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the hidden meanings behind ancient texts. See you next time.